The Brazilian Roswell incident, known as the Varinga case, has resurfaced, igniting intrigue and sparking rumors of potential creature footage. So back in 1996, this incident garnered global attention, featuring a UFO crash, an alleged extraterrestrial encounter, and a subsequent military cover-up, despite official government denials. It's every UFO expert and alien lover's dream. It also sounded like science fiction. To be technical, on January 13th of 1996, the United States Air Force took down a UFO, an unidentified flying object, which crashed 6 miles from a medium-sized town in southeastern Brazil. And this enigma remains one of Brazil's most famous UFO cases, drawing a lot of UFO tourism to the area. So witnesses recounted a bizarre event on that day, when a strange cigar-shaped object crashed down. Locals observed its gradual descent, describing it as resembling a struggling washing machine. Now, this incident was followed by the arrival of military personnel who quickly cordoned off the area. Now, subsequently, a group of 3 girls claimed to have encountered a strange creature with brown, oily skin, V-shaped feet, a large head, and huge red eyes. Now, the Brazilian military later was like, oh no, this creature is just a homeless guy covered in mud. But the witnesses were like, absolutely not. This creature eventually adopted the nickname the ET of the area, and it seemed to be wobbly, unsteady on its feet. The girls assumed it was injured or sick, so they fled. They told their mother they'd seen the devil, and yeah. Now, standing out in a different way was the creature's distinct odor. One ghastly inhale would weaken the knees. According to one of the witnesses, for 20 days they smelled its smell, and they couldn't stand it. They didn't know where it came from, they washed out their nose with everything they could think of, and it still stunk in there. As for the strange creature's demeanor, the woman unanimously agreed. It was muddle-headed. When the creature wagged its big noggin dizzily in their direction, that's when they bolted. They recalled pretty well the creature's fearful expression and alien characteristics, leading them to believe with absolute certainty this is not a human, this is not an animal. Now, the mystery deepened when 2 military police officers reportedly captured the creature, only for one of them to suffer a fatal infection shortly afterwards. And by the way, the girls have not changed their testimony in the more than 25 years now that have passed since the events. So after everything touched down, rumors were spreading like wildfire. A lot of folks were like, yeah, no, we saw more UFOs before this. Later on, claims were made of additional unidentified creatures or extraterrestrial beings that were being collected and observed at a hospital. There were talks of military, police, and government trucks and personnel being really active in the area. There was an unidentified creature prowling a local forest. And then you add in that death that I mentioned earlier, and apparently there was also some unexplained animal deaths at the local zoo. UFO experts would later allege links between these and other claims, including the claim that one of the initial creature witnesses was allegedly impregnated by the creature. So going back to the military stuff, apparently 6 miles away from the crash site, the military set up quite a blockade in a residential neighborhood. Now, sources say the local fire department, which is under the control of the military police, they captured one of the creatures in the morning, and then another officer captured a second near where the 3 girls had seen it that afternoon. A lot of folks were like, okay, well, I saw something. There was that cigar-shaped flying object. There was all these troops, and there was a lot of activity going on at the hospital. So when you add in all the UFO experts that were coming onto the scene, and of course the media, and the residents were like, look, 2 + 2 = 4. An official inquiry led by the Brazilian military concluded in 2010 that allegedly the woman had just encountered this homeless, mentally unstable man named Mudinho. The commander of the 24th Police Battalion military presented photographs of this citizen. They were like, yeah, no, they're not great, but they said, no, they're not great mentally, the physical characteristics match the description, and they said, like, look, maybe because this person was covered in dirt and then they were crouching, the 3 terrified girls just thought they were a space creature. And the head of the official inquiry also reported that the military trucks and personnel were performing just routine duties in the area. They're like, oh, you know, this is just periodic maintenance. It just, you know, normal that we set up random blockades in residential neighborhoods after people see this random homeless man that looks kind of weird. This was incorrectly interpreted as firefighters in the military and capture and whatnot. Just routine stuff. Skeptic Brian Dunning criticized the sensationalized media accounts and the claims. According to Brian, it is the most compelling example of a case where literally nothing at all happened that was remotely unusual, and it was magnified into a case that was considered, you know, proof, absolute proof of alien visitation by many. And he's like, look, To those believers, I would suggest recalibrating where you set the bar for quality of evidence. Well, sir, I've talked about a lot of alien stories, and this one seems pretty real. There was a young woman named Nilda who said, for extraterrestrials they may not be much, but they're the biggest thing we've had around here. She said, look, had the armed forces not interfered, maybe the locals might have, helped out the visitors, taught them local language, integrated them into the community. But Nilda said that the extraterrestrials never had a chance. Her anger at the military's alleged inhospitality actually sparked a tiff with her boyfriend, who was in the military. She claims that to some extent, the army was paying for their past sins. So during an oppressive 20-year dictatorship ending in 1985, the Brazilian military eliminated a number of earthbound political enemies by disappearing them. So in her mind, if the army was capable of liquidating human beings without a trace, why couldn't it carry such a dirty war to outer space? So, at the army base near Varinga, an inquiry concerning the extraterrestrials was received by a private, who turned it over to a sergeant, who then passed it to a major, who then sent it back down to another sergeant, who handed it over to Captain Eduardo Calza. And he's like, I used to get calls about the base talent show, not this. Now, Captain Calza says he can't vouch for what the 3 witnesses saw, but the activity on the base that fateful weekend was, according to him, anything but otherworldly. New inductees to a sergeant's training school went on parade, a truck convoy was driven to the repair shop. Now, at the town hospital, trucks delivered new cardiovascular equipment and, wait for this folks, an ambulance dropped off an exhumed corpse. But he's like, no, it was a human body. Now, bring in Vittorio Peccaccini, a UFO investigator who said, yeah, sure, tell us another story. Based upon interviews with witnesses, Mr. Peccaccini has pieced together what he considers to be a more plausible reconstruction of those events. He believes that a small alien craft on an unknown mission over the area crashed near city limits, sending its crew of smelly, spaced-out extraterrestrials, meandering about the town. And then, military squads in camouflage fatigues hunted down the visitors, poked and prodded the corpses at the municipal hospital. Now, the alleged proof that he has are videotaped statements by 2 young men in civilian clothes who claim to be members of the military detail that disposed of the alien visitors. Now, it is impossible to determine the tape's authenticity because, and rightfully so, Mr. Peccaccini won't reveal the men's names. Why? Well, they're in fear for their lives. So yes, technically there is a bit of a lack of physical evidence, unless you count descriptions of a paw print seen by one witness. And apparently it resembles like what a human hand would look like with the palm flat and a space opened up between the ring and pinky fingers, so right about here, and the other 3 digits. Look, it kind of looks kind of Star Trek-y, but work with me here. There was a documentary that happened recently, Moment of Contact, and it reignited a lot of interest in the case. It featured interviews with witnesses and an anonymous whistleblower known as Military X, and they claimed to have been involved in transporting the creature's body to the ESA Army base. And his description of the creature's oily skin and the foot only added to our evidence. There was a college professor, an amateur pilot, Carlos de Sousa, said he witnessed the crash on that very day. He described the spacecraft as the size of a school bus, but shaped like a submarine, with white smoke leaking out of a gash in the back. Once again, he's comparing it to a malfunctioning washing machine, rocking and jerking about in the sky. So when he ran to the site of the crash, he saw pieces of metal, like thin aluminum foil, spread across the field. He picked up a piece of it, crumpled it in his hand, and then let it go. And at that point, it actually returned to its original shape. Immediately afterwards, the military showed up, and they were like, okay, you, get out of here. They were ordering him away with... I'm just saying,